All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and admit everyone and we can begin. Right, welcome everyone. We're going to just get here started in just a moment.
Hi.
Right. Well, welcome everyone to the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network information session titled Living on Ice-Rich Permafrost, 50 Years to a Slow Moving Disaster. My name is Krista Haringa, and I'm a coordinator for the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network. Just a few reminders. If you are calling in on the phone, please go ahead and mute yourself. If you don't have a dedicated button, you can press *6. And everyone else should be muted, but we will have a chance for Q&A at the end, and you could go ahead and unmute yourself at that point. This session is being recorded and is going to be added to our website hopefully by the end of the week. I want to invite everyone to go ahead and introduce yourself in the Zoom. Let's see. And before we begin this session, I'd like to acknowledge that our offices are located on Indigenous land. I'm based at the offices located on the traditional territory of the Lower Tanana Dene, the people, and on the Trothiada campus, otherwise known as Indian Potato Ridge. I also have my little guy in the background who also likes to introduce himself. We also have a number of our staff located in Anchorage on the traditional territory of the Dena'ina, the Baskin people on the Alaska Pacific University campus in Anchorage. If this is one of your first sessions that you've joined, the Alaska Tribal Resilience Learning Network was created to be a community of learning, sharing, and support for Alaska tribes and Indigenous communities that are responding to the current and future impacts of climate change. And there are a few different ways that you can participate in the Learning Network, obviously joining one of these sessions, but we also have a monthly e-news bulletin that has a lot of different resources and events listed there. We also have in-person training events, as well as periodic monthly check-in calls. Oh, and then I'm really excited to introduce this session and the important work that's happening in the community of Point Lay as they're responding to some of the accelerated and pretty significant impacts of climate change, particularly those related to permafrost thaw. And I think this session really highlights the value of partnership, academic partnerships, particularly when the priorities and interests of the community are put first. We have several speakers today. Bill Tracy, who is a Point Lay resident and also with the North Slope Borough Assembly, and Kuno Curtis, who is the Point Lay Fire Chief, and also Billy Connor, who's the Director of Arctic Infrastructure Development Center at UAF. And thanks again for all of you joining. And before I turn it over to our presenters, Melinda, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think you highlighted it, but Adet, hello all. I'm Melinda Chase. I am the tribal liaison at the Alaska Climate Adaptation Science Center, and also work with a great team of people with Tribal Resilience Learning Network, of course, in this space, really trying to help share information to tribes across Alaska and indigenous folks, and other areas that would be interested in really learning and sharing from one another. And like Krista said, I think Point Lay is doing some significant work, especially with their multiple approach, looking at permafrost thaw there, and how they are partnering with folks strategically and trying to forward the heavy impacts they're having there. So I just want to welcome everybody, and particularly our presenters who are all willing to share. So Dogaden, thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. And Billy, I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to share your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll turn my camera on for just a moment while I share the screen. Basically what we're going to do is Bill and Kumo are going to give some of their experiences with the activities in Point Lay. They're the residents, they're the ones that we ultimately serve. And then I'll back up what they're saying with a little bit of science and engineering to try to bring some hope into solving their solutions. So hopefully you can see my screen at this point.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Bill, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Uvlaluktuk. Good morning, everybody, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and your busy schedules to listen to us. We're not complaining by any means. We're simply stating facts and the changes that we've noticed over the past 50 years. and just to touch on that, living on ice-rich permafrost, 50 years to a slow-moving disaster here in Point Lay. We had to come up with a title and a starting point. Of course, if we backed up to 4.5 billion years ago, this was a rock hurling through space, but we thought that might take a little too much time. So 50 years ago is basically when people started relocating back to Point Lay, and we thought that was a good starting point. Slide 2, please. With slide 2, Hungasuk and I, we share a lot of history. I was the original fire chief here in Point Lay, and Hungasuk was one of my explorers. And he started early on, and lo and behold, when I retired from the fire service, Hungasuk took over, and he was well trained and felt confident with his abilities to run our fire department. I'm not sure if the slides are changing, but I'm going to move on to slide 3. Slide 3, it's a map showing the local area. So we have the Chukchi Sea, part of the Arctic Ocean, here in front of us. We have the Cussagaluk Lagoon. It's an 80-mile long lagoon.
I think you should go back to the previous slide. Yeah. No, previous.
Yeah.
Previous. Yeah, this one.
Okay, the slides are kind of jumping around, but there. I think I like that one. You can see the Chukchi Sea off to the left, the Barrier Island, and the Kasagalik Lagoon. It's about an 80-mile long lagoon, one of the longest lagoon systems in the United States. We're blessed to have that, and then the mainland, and there's multiple rivers. You can see why our elders and our ancestors decided to make this their home, because you had access to the ocean for the whales, sea mammals, and of course, the ocean is our garden. So 85 to 90% of our food comes from the ocean. And the mainland, you see that red block there, right adjacent to that is the Department of Defense Dew Line Station, which is closed at this time for good, we hope. And then to the right of this screen, you'll see the present village. We've got like 9 blocks. Up north is the residential and the industrial, and down here at the bottom of the screen. And to the right of that, you'll see some darkish areas and ponding in the tundra, and that's a snow fence we put up to block snow from that particular direction. Slide 4, please. Slide 4 is a map showing the 3 village locations. I don't see the map yet, but so the original site, the original point lay, is out on the Barrier Island. That really was settled back in the 20s, the 1920s. People moved here from the Utakak area, Icy Cape, and then along the Barrier Island and all points around that. Mainly people lived at the mouths or the deltas of many of our rivers. And they chose to settle here, and it became a major trading area. The Utakak people, the Tikiak people from Point Hope, they all merged here, and it was quite the event annually. Our second location, you see that 1972, because we didn't have ownership or access to this present site, we relocated the village up Kukulik River, mainly because funding sources thought that the Barrier Island was a flood zone, and they were right. So we decided on this island up Kukulik River, and it was really a tough location. It was a small piece of land, too small for airports. It didn't have any roads. It was way too wet for roads, and it didn't have a water source, and it flooded. There was major ice jams. We found out just about every spring breakup, and that water would flood almost the entire island. And I remember my father-in-law complaining one time that even though he lives the furthest in on this particular island, the floodwaters bring everybody's trash and honey bucket drums to his yard. And as the water recedes, he's got all their trash in his yard. So he was not a happy camper at spring breakup. Eventually, we got to move it in next to the Department of Defense, the Dew Line site. We had a choice. We could have moved 7-8 miles south of us, where we had some homes from previous dwellers, but that was our hunting land. And we come to realize that if you relocate to your hunting grounds, they no longer become hunting grounds. All the game will move on. So we decided next to the airport, there was a beautiful lake there for fresh water. And there was some roads already that the Air Force had put in to access the beach and the fresh water. To the right, you'll see a map showing different colors of land. The green being the local village corporation, Cully Corporation land. Then there's the pink, which is ASRC, and blue, some state land. So Ansca brought all that on. And the lower picture to the right shows what the original site has become. It's a bunch of sod homes and dilapidated homes, and it's our summer community now, where it's pretty much insect free. We have access to the ocean and the lagoon from that site. Next slide, please. So slide 4, I'm sorry, that might be slide 5. Slide 5 shows the growth that we've experienced here in this new location, this third location, if you will. So we started water delivery service and sewer service. You see that pipeline in front of you, that's bringing water to the school and waste heat to the school and some other commercial buildings. In the lower pictures, you're seeing a lot of people. That was probably our 4th of July celebration. And I need to mention that we're a very young community. So just moving back to Point Lay early on in the 70s, we did a couple of census since then. And in 2010, with about 250 people, our average age was 17. And the latest survey brought that age up to the average age being 21. So we're a very young community. And then that third picture shows our brand new school at the time. Beautiful building, beautiful place to learn. But of course, our population is growing. We've now outgrown the village of Utkusut and Kaktovik. So we're not the smallest village anymore. We're well into the 300 population. Next slide, please. So I mentioned Ansca. I mentioned the land ownerships. Well, when Ansca became law early in the 1970s, only one family lived in Point Lay at that time, and that was my in-laws, Warren and Dorcas Knackle. Warren worked at the Dew site, and the fact that they were the only family is because the BIA had set up boarding schools and shipped students from most of the state to these boarding schools, including Point Lay, and families just moved off to where it would have been easier to live without the help of their kids, helping them with their daily chores and access to their children in a hub area, if you will. So Point Lay was pretty lonely during the latter part of the 50s and the 60s. And come Ansca, that invited people to move back to their communities. So as 50 years ago, there was 46 people here trying to build up at that river location. So we were living in the original Point Lay in these dilapidated sod homes and shiplap homes, crate homes. There is what they were built out of, lumber from various crates and pallets. And we set up tents, and we had to traverse during the summer the lagoon and the river. And snow machine travel to get to the construction site. So it wasn't easy, but with the thought that we were building a new community to resettle Point Lay just kept us going every day. So the North Slope Borough was being formed, ASRC and the village corporations were being formed. And people started moving back in the 70s. We heated the old BIA school building that was in the original site. That was moved actually from Icy Cape. And that was a one-room schoolhouse heated by coal. And we had 13 students of various ages and one teacher. Of course, the North Slope Borough took over the powers of the education, the police, water, sewage, everything except recreations and our grave sites became borough responsibilities. ASRC was a funding source, and our village corporation was here to manage the lands. There was always a little resentment there because the lands actually belonged to the native village of Point Lay, but Ansca made new land owners. So we're learning to work together on that. So we're now building our new site. If we can move to slide 6. Slide 7, I'm sorry. We're building our new village, and we started noticing that things were changing. River channels were changing. River banks were sloughing. The land that we were living on, that island, was getting wetter. The ice jams would flooding us. So we knew that it was not a good location. We learned that early on and started working with the Air Force to get a new location. And that happened just prior to 1980. Documents were signed, and it was a go to move to that new location. We thought there'd be time to do some site preparation, gravel pads, insulated pads that we can build our homes upon. But because of the scarcity of gravel, there was no heavy equipment. That all had to come in on the annual sea lift, the barge. So the native village was able to acquire some homes from the BIA. Eventually it became 12 homes, and we started building in the new site prior to some surveys, prior to some roads. We knew where the land division was between the Air Force and the community. So we just picked sites and started building. And sometimes when they did do their survey and put in roads, we were a little off what would have been the lot. So we're hand building these homes. We didn't have any electricity. And all the while, it's kind of like a Newtok thing. All the while, we still had people living in the river village and people staying at the original site. So living in the river village, generation was scarce. We finally did build a generator building. We built 10 homes. Cudahy Corporation arranged for another 6 homes. We had a schoolhouse, what was supposed to be a health clinic and a post office and a store. We finally got that power plant fired up. And come October, that lone generator we had died, and we were without power for the entire winter. So from October to the next May, we had a winter with no electricity at all, and that was a long winter. So now that we're almost in 3 locations at one time, we're slowly moving to the present location. The Air Force had the runway. Of course, there was a road to the freshwater lake. The borough started putting in roads and power distribution, power plants. We got heavy equipment. We got, of course, this heavy equipment was sent without cabs. So here we have some of the most severe winters, and we're operating Caterpillars and road graders and backhoes without cabs. So eventually those things were outfitted with that, but we didn't have a warm building for heavy equipment. So starting it and warming it up took half the day. And then we started the major relocation from the island village. Now that we had heavy equipment, and we hired a contractor to come in, and they would jack up the home, slide a skid under it. And during the next 3 winters, we drug those homes, the store, the school, the power plant, we drug those buildings on the ice, the river ice and up the lagoon to this present location. And the houses didn't do that well. That was a lot of moving, a lot of lifting. So those houses started getting older before their time, even though they were pretty new. So now we're living in one location, finally. That River Village location became vacant. And the old village, the original site, became our summer village. We noticed that on the barrier island that we lost 2 homes to the ocean as the storm surge and the coastline eroded. Houses fell into the sea, and the only high ground on the barrier island next to where we lived was where our ice cellars were placed. At the time, it was the best location because it was convenient. It was high ground. The farther end of that high ground was the graveyard, and now that whole area has eroded. All the ice cellars have dilapidated and are no longer in use. And it looks like we're going to have to do something about the grave site. The graves are all getting exposed and becoming ponds. And that's the case with our new graveyard, close to where we're looking at this particular picture. If we go to the next slide, please, slide 8. Slide 8 is going to show you what this picture is revealing. That right before you here is the lake, and the land eroded. The river kind of washed away the land between the lake and the river. This is our freshwater lake. And the lake drained into the river. And we happened to notice that when the lake drained, it looked like the Air Force was careless with a lot of their, I don't know, we were calling it debris, but you can see it's drums and pipes and Caterpillar tracks and who knows what else. And that was in our water source, unknowns to us because it was underwater. But now this is just a big mud flat, and there's still a lot of debris there. So we're now having to siphon water from the river every year to satisfy our domestic water needs, our fire protection water. And it gets, before we had the 3 water holding tanks, about over 3 million gallons of water. If we didn't have fire protection for the school, sprinklers, then we'd have to close school down, and we actually had to close it several times because of the unavailability of water. We use the river now for a water source, even though the part of the river that we're getting water from has some saline. We filter it and use a reverse osmosis to clean it up. So no sooner did we lose our lake water source, we lost a 1 million gallon water tank, which is the next slide, slide 9. This water storage tank was the first one built in Point Lay. It was the ground was kept frozen with thermal siphons, and at least one failed. And when that thermal siphon failed, the land under it, the pad under it, eroded, and the tank floor broke open, and the tank flooded and is no longer in use. Matter of fact, it's been demoed down. In this picture, you can see the tank, the thermal siphons. One of them right in front of you has no ice on it, which is, I think, the one that it was still working. The ones that started freezing, they weren't dissipating the heat like they should have been. And then the lower picture on the left there, you can see the breach inside the water tank. And that drained rapidly, and it flooded a portion of our community. And it started because of the ice in the culverts and the roads blocking the path of the water. It flooded a section of town that almost went into the construction camp that we had built. So that was kind of devastating, having to use the lake now for a water source, and losing our lake and losing our water tank. We could see that this change in our land and what it's doing to our infrastructure. If we can move to slide 10, a little more evidence of what's happening here. We've got a direct bury water sewer system that was put in, and that was wonderful, because now we're off honey buckets. We're not getting truck water delivered to us. We have water coming in from under the ground. We have sewage going out from under the ground. And this is a multi-million-dollar project. And it was supposed to be a single system for the whole community to get everybody off honey buckets, everybody off holding tanks. And that never really came to fruition. Some homes didn't qualify because of their lack of foundation. They couldn't hook up water, sewer, and there was no thought for future expansion with this system, because the equipment we needed, the big rock saw and all that, they were moved to the next community for their system to be put in. So right in front of us, this fenced in area, it's hard to see what it is, but that's a manhole that was put in the middle of the intersection of our main street, where different water sewer lines merged, and then because it's a gravity flow system, it moved on down the hill to the water plant or sewer plant. That hole has been open ever since we started using the system, because things weren't working right and they needed access. The fire hydrants, boy, were we proud the day that we got fire hydrants. We got 12 of them put in the village, and it just boosted the morale of the firefighters, because now we had other than the 1,000 and the 2,000 gallons of water that are on the two of our fire apparatus, we now had access to hydrants if there was a big fire. Today, several of those hydrants are not working. The ground gave under them, or they froze. Multiple problems. If we could move on to.
Yeah, Bill, this is Jan. I was just going to say, I think we were really ambitious in what we wanted to cover this morning. So just to save time for Kuno and also Billy, we probably have to speed up a little bit.
Okay. We're having to abandon the water sewer system. we're having to cross brace our houses. The subsidence, the erosion, the water leaks, everything is hitting us head on right now. And we're having to think about a new system, and an above ground water sewer system is in the design stage now. We're working with several agencies to help us along with dealing with these changes. And Hudo, if you'd like, I'll give the floor over to you.
Okay, Kumar.
Okay. All right. Good morning. My name's Mr. Curtis. I'm the village fire chief, current village fire chief, and also a member of search and rescue, and also a co-captain for my brother's whaling crew. This morning, I'll be talking to you guys about our subsistence impact, and also how things changed from when I was a elementary kid all the way up until now, as far as I can remember. A lot of things changed. Of course, Bill mentioned the loss of our freshwater lake that breached back in 2016, 2017, and of course that was a big loss due to our community. And that breach from the water lake was also our main travel area to go out hunting. And with that being gone or being eroded due to the river, we had to change our routes for hunting, going out to catch our caribou, also pick berries, and also for egg picking. As you can see in the main picture, one of the routes that we take from the dump road, the dump road, and also the water lake road. Nowadays it's very hard to traverse or drive around because of all of the ice wedges that are subsiding the tundra. And as you can see this picture right here, a breach in our water lake, you can see where the vegetation is flat and also been driven on. This was our primary route for going out inland to catch our caribou, do a lot of berry picking, and also for the egg season where we pick a lot of our fresh eggs off the tundra. And moving back to slide 16, where it shows a lot of the snow in the sunset. This part of the season is where we would start to pick our fresh eggs, the geese eggs, the duck eggs, the ptarmigan eggs, which were real convenient to us because we do a lot of baking with our eggs, and also doing a lot of cooking with our eggs. They're a lot fresher than the store-bought, and also not as expensive due to the prices of the products that are at the store. And also on the left side of the picture, it shows the creek, which is also our crossing point, our main crossing point for going from this side of the village, this side of the travel area, to the other side, which connects to the river. This creek right here is also where we pick our berries and also where we catch a majority of our caribou, where they roam and where they rut during the summer and all fall time, where they take the velvet off their antlers. The center picture where it shows the ice that was taken couple days ago by myself. We are traversing the ocean ice right now to break trail to open water, to harvest, to actually hunt the bowhead whale, which is a very big food source for us, for not only our community but also the rest of the North Slope and the rest of our relatives across the state of Alaska. Moving on to slide 18, where it shows the coastal erosion, of course, due to the intensity of the fall storms and also the thawing of the ice wedges. It creates coastal erosions, and also we lose a lot of our coastal trails due to the fall storms and also the ice wedges that are melting. It's a quick route where we can get from point A to point B, but due to the intensity of the storms, it creates a lot of hazards for local hunters. Moving on to the next slide, the ice cellar failure. The ice cellars provide a sense of food security for us locals. It keeps our food frozen for all year round. This picture right here is the first ice cellar that was in the village of Point Lay, which is Warren and Dorcas's ice cellar. This was built way before my time. Bill was had moved up here, and this ice cellar right here, it has been closed for approximately 20 years, give or take. We currently have 2 ice cellars here on the main site of Point Lay. One of the ice cellars had failed due to the subsidence of the tundra and also the ice wedges that are melting. And due to that, we had to abandon that ice cellar. And the one that's currently still usable is on the 800 block of our town site. And that ice cellar is still usable, but due to the increase of temperature, we're having to chip ice, or actually open up the ice cellar during the summertime and let the warm air out of the ice cellar, and that way it can stay cool and keep our food frozen. Last year we had to dispose of approximately 100 pounds of our native food, our fresh food that usually keeps our food frozen, but nowadays we're having to either discard of it or use it in other manners where it still can be used as subsistence, where for trapping or for pretty much trapping due to the increased temperatures. Moving on to the next slide. The walrus hollout, of course, is one the biggest, if not the biggest, walrus haulout within the United States. Approximately 100 to 200,000 walruses haul out on our barrier island. Due to the diminished ice, the ice shelf, they're having to haul out on our beaches to rest, and also to look for their food, which is mussels, clams, and other food that they eat. And this also creates a hazard not only to the village but also to the other wildlife that's within the area, such as the birds and the pups, the walrus pups. And it also creates not only that hazard, but also a shipping hazard for the vessels that are either parking near or close to the walrus haulout, and also the vessels that are traversing past Point Lay. Moving on to the next slide. All right, this slide right here. Of course, the top slide is our breaking trail to getting to the open water, so we can subsist the bowhead whale. And this year is particularly real dangerous because of how thin the ice is. There's actually 24 black ice sheets of ice where it's real thin, approximately 1 to 2, maybe 3 or 4 inches thick. And with the snow covering the top of it, that also creates a real dangerous scenario, not only to the hunters that are out there, but also the equipment, the amount of equipment and the amount of weight that's on it. So we scout our trails with 1 or 2 snow machines beforehand, and we check the ice depth, and we determine if it's safe or not. And all the pressure ridges and all the pressure ridges creates an anchor that keeps the main sheet of ice and also the small pieces of ice together. It also serves as a windbreak, not only a windbreak but also a lookout point for us hunters that look out for polar bears, seals, and also look out for bull. The top left picture where it shows the greenhouse and the pond. A lot of young kids like to, during the summertime, get a styrofoam board and also go rafting on these ponds, which also creates a hazard to the community, the local community members. And we're working on getting all the deep ponds taken care of. That way it minimizes the risks of the kids either having an incident in the village. The culvert that you see in the picture used to be lower than that, but due to the subsidence of the permafrost and the ice wedges, it's actually now higher than the pond itself. It doesn't serve the purpose what it was made for. And also due to the amount of trenching, fixing the water breaks and sewer breaks, the contractors don't set them down deep enough to where it drain all of the water. Now we're having to scrounge around for gravel and silt to backfill these ponds, which is approximately 80 or 90% of the ponds that are present within the village are approximately 5, maybe 6 feet deep, maybe even deeper. The middle picture that you see where the fence is, that picture was a man-made trench where they had to do a repair for the water and sewer system. With that trench being so close to the power pole, it creates a significant hazard for the community, and it creates creates a significant hazard. And due to the failing of the water and sewer system, it gets real dangerous. Moving on to the next slide. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill and Kumo, for your comments. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to tie all this together with some of the work that we here at UAF have been doing in Point Lay. My first visit to Point Lay was way back in 2012, and we were looking at primarily the water wastewater systems and how the North Slope Bio might move forward with that.
Billy, this is Jana. Melinda and I have just been chatting in the chat, and we were talking about maybe saving your presentation for another month, if that would work for you, so that we would have a little bit of time here for Q&A right at the end.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll stop
but don't stop yet. I wanted to know if you could go back to one of the slides that showed the ponding and the 2-story, 1-story homes becoming 2 stories, and just let people look at that for a minute before we close, because I think that is such a good picture of what's happening.
This is the one you want?
Yeah, that one. I think that helps. That one and the one before it.
This one?
Yeah, I think just pause there for a moment, and then
okay.
We'll let Megan or Melinda come back and see if they want some time for Q&A.
Krista, do you want me to handle that, or do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Melinda.
Okay, well, it seems like I just want to say that, you know, when Jana invited myself to attend some of the working group meetings and I was conveying some information to other folks, like at the BIA front, but just hearing Point Lay's story with the amount of cascading impacts that you see there, and definitely hearing it from our 2 speakers there, and then knowing that they are doing some significant work, I think it's really important to take some time. And so, you know, I know that we're right up against the hour, but I'd like to open it up to some general questions, and then know that we'll work with Jana and really Point Lay team and the research folks and add another series to this, because it is so significant in terms of the work as well as the impact. And I think hearing the history this morning about the 3 different moves, that was new for me, information for that kind of information, as well as seeing the impact on the trail systems and the land and the water system. So I really do appreciate this. And with that, I would just like to say, if you have a question, maybe you can go ahead and put it, raise your hand. That might be helpful, or put it in the chat. Or even any comments.
I would just like to make one comment. This is Jana, and at UAF. And just to say that I really appreciated the history that was shared, and I'm so glad that this episode was recorded, because I think that some of that was new to me as well, and I'm really looking forward to having that information out there.
Okay, here's a big question from Olaf. And thank you, Jana. Yes, I think history is significantly important. Would 3D visualization, virtual reality illustration of the permafrost thaw and its impact on the community infrastructure, including the digital measurement of subsidence, help the community planning and engineering in the future? And what is the impact of permafrost thaw on grave sites? That's a pretty in-depth question. I don't know in 4 minutes if we can cover all that, but does anybody from the team have any thoughts about that? And then if not, we can possibly circle back around to that in the next series. But I'll go ahead and open it up.
Yeah, actually, some of that was in the presentation that I had, and if we come back to it, I can go into a little more depth. But we are doing what we call orthographic maps, which we are getting three-dimensional data and using that to map out the thermokarst troughs, the ice wedge troughs, as well as the Bazarax, which is the high ground between those, and trying to understand that. And that has been made available to the North Slope Borough as well as the community of Point Lay to help them in the design of the new water wastewater system, as well as to looking at where they may want to put future homes in those areas. And we're also using that to try to understand how we can go about resolving some of the issues that they're having, such as possibly filling in some of those troughs and calculating how much material will be required for that. So that's the short answer. We'll go into it more depth at a later time, if that's okay with you, Melinda.
That would be great. And yeah, and then I think we have another question here from Anna, and asking me, but if it doesn't already exist, some list of how people can help, even if it's a first brainstorm of idea, and any success stories would be amazing.
Yeah.
So Anna, if you want to expand on that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've broadened up the question even more, how can people living in Alaska or people living beyond Alaska, how could we help a community like Point Lay in addressing these challenges associated with permafrost thaw? So really, if there is some resource already that you can point to, that would be lovely. And perhaps there is a need for some kind of compilation of needs, because I can see, money is one thing, but it could also be skills and various products that could be generated to help communities facing these permafrost thaw challenges.
Well, maybe I'll jump in
maybe
here.
I'll just respond to a few thoughts about that. One, oh, go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead, Melinda.
Okay. Oh, what I was just going to share is that tribes really do want to learn from one another. Every training that Krista and I do with tribes and with communities, they want to hear from one another. They want to figure out where their common ground is at, pun intended there, right? But where they can be collaborating. Like I'm right now in Whitehorse, and there's, of course, communities here that are dealing with permafrost as well. And so how do we look at some of those areas to collaborate on, or to share skills, and for people to build that out? Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, one of the things that I really appreciate as we've worked through Point Lay, the people of Point Lay have been very open and very kind in providing us with the information and the history of the community of Point Lay. That helps out tremendously in understanding what's going on there and the chain of events that led Point Lay to where it's at. The North Slope Borough, all of the employees and the engineering staff have been very open with us, admitting mistakes when they were made and discussing those so that we hopefully document some of those issues so that we don't repeat the errors that we made. And so also in the case of success, we want to be able to repeat those successes in the future. And one of our goals is to document both our successes and our failures. And I really appreciate the openness of the people of Point Lay as well as the people of North Slope Borough.
Great. Well, I apologize. I just think that you have Point Lay and all of you who are working together have such a tremendous amount to both share and, like you said, to find out if there's other areas of gaining support from a broader range of people. But we will definitely work with all of you and get another information session scheduled according to what works for all of you. And we thank you to all of you who signed in. We definitely, it's great to see people attending and excited with some of the questions. I saw those last two questions, and we will save those for the next session. I apologize to those of you. And Krista, did you have any other final announcements?
I don't think so, Melinda. Not at this point. So I think we can go ahead and close out the session.
All right. Well, thank you all. And I hope you are having a wonderful spring. We appreciate it once again for you to share with one another. And thank you to our presenters. Take care, and we will be in touch. Okay. See you all.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you all.